Hello and welcome again to Sarah Ahern, who was with us just really not that long ago, and we had that really awesome chat about intermittent fasting. And I actually said the word right this time. But thanks so much for coming along. And today we're talking about a whole different subject. We're talking about keto, and you're going to tell us all of your awesome knowledge about it. And I'm just going to ask you about it because I don't know anything about keto really. So welcome. Thanks for coming. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thanks, Talia. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I am a health and nutrition coach, and I help people regain their health, reverse type 2 diabetes, and any other health issues that they have by adopting a low carb and ketogenic lifestyle.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's pretty intense. Like, hey, I've got heaps of questions already. Okay, so
Yes.
last time we talked about intermittent fasting. So that's where you can adopt any sort of number of hours of not eating for a
Yes.
period of time and then starting to eat again in particular windows. And we talked about how that's to lower your insulin levels and that sort of thing. So I'm guessing, because this is your lifestyle, I'm guessing that keto has something to do with the insulin thing. So tell me what is keto? Why is it so apparently so good for us? And just
Yes.
tell us all what it is.
Okay. So keto, the way of keto eating is basically a low carbohydrate, moderate protein, and high fat diet. And I don't like to use the word diet because it actually isn't a diet. And today I hope that I can sort of debunk this myth of it being a diet and a fad diet because it's absolutely not.
Mm.
So basically, ketosis, what it means, nutritional ketosis, is a natural metabolic state that our body is in. So we have two types of fuel that we can burn. We can either choose sugar or we can choose fat, which are like ketones. And so the majority of us, I would say a huge amount of us, generally run on glucose and sugar as our main energy source. When you remove the carbohydrates and the sugar, what happens is our body goes searching for another fuel source. And so that's when it will go into using ketones. So basically, it's just a different energy source than what you're used to if you're used to having sort of sugar. If we have a diet, if we look at our standard Western supermarket diet, generally that is something that is a high carbohydrate, highly processed, high in sugar, and seed oils as well, kind of food diet. And that's where our insulin is going to be raised a lot more. And our blood sugar will be also high as well. So when we take that away, our insulin drops, our blood sugar drops, and we're running on this, I call it a clean fuel. And I call the keto lifestyle a proper human diet. The
Wow.
reason I call it a proper human diet is because it goes back to the way our ancestors ate.
Mm.
And so it's really simple. It is just plants and animals, and that is it.
Um, like,
So people say it's not healthy,
yeah.
but it's the way that we evolved eating meat and plants.
Mm. So on that, so that what you're eating mainly is, like you said, is meat and plants. Um Now, I'm no nutritionist myself. Sorry, I forgot to actually introduce Sarah Ahern as a health and nutrition coach. So anyway, just so you know the credentials. With the meat thing, like, I'm no nutritionist myself, but I remember doing PE in seventh form.
Mhm.
Remember them talking about meat and like how long it takes to process meat through your body, and it's like several hours compared to this and that and the other. And
Yeah.
and hearing that meat is actually, or too much meat is not really good for you. So how is keto good for you if it's quite, a solid meat
Yeah.
diet?
Well, basically everything that you've ever been taught about nutrition, when you think of that dietary, that pyramid that we all know really, really well, and that's been around for the last 50 years, since
Mm,
1970,
mm,
that pyramid, everything you've learned is completely wrong. And
mm,
I'll say that quite, yeah, it is wrong. And this is the reason why we are here as a nation today. We are
mm,
sick, we are obese, we
mm,
have so many lifestyle diseases.
mm,
This is from the food that we eat. So
mm,
that dietary pyramid that that
mm,
needs to be flipped upside down on its head. And
mm.
that is the way that we should be eating.
Yeah.
So there is not one single study to say that red meat causes cancer or heart disease.
Mm,
These studies are weak.
mm,
They do not, they are association and correlation. They are not causation.
mm,
So they don't have they don't have, and they try to scare us with it. And I think over the last 50 years, we have done a really good job. We've been told that we should eat less red meat. And I think we've done a really good job at doing it. We're no healthier. So there is not epidemiological studies are not the best form of studies, and that's where what they've done with meat. And there is absolutely not one single study. It's often what goes around the meat or what is eaten with the meat that is the problem. So they're blaming red meat for this, for obesity and diabetes and all those problems. But it's what you eat with it. It's the Coke, it's the bun that goes around that burger that you're eating. It's the processed stuff that goes with it. And it's unfortunately saturated fat and red meat has been demonized for so many years, and it's none of it is true. None of it is true. If you look back to how our ancestors ate, they didn't have all the issues, all the health issues that we have today. They didn't have that. And it wasn't until the grains and, highly processed foods and seed oils came into our diet that this is when all the problems have happened.
Wow, that's so interesting. So what would you say, like, just give me a brief overview of what would a good, because I know that I've heard there's dirty keto and clean keto. I have no idea what that means because I don't even know what keto foods really are or look like. So tell me what would be a normal kind of keto diet, and then tell me what's the difference between clean and dirty.
Okay, so what would you eat in a keto lifestyle would be anything that has recently been flying, swimming, running, and rowing. If that's a good way. So all the meat, chicken, fish, beef, all of those, having the fat that goes with it. There is not a single, I think a lot of people know this, and a lot of doctors now are finally starting to actually change the way they think that fat does not cause heart disease. It does not clog our arteries. It is sugar and seed oil that is causing all the damage.
Wow.
So absolutely. So and having plants that grow. So that is, and you can have anything from animal products. So you've got dairy, you've got eggs, you've got cheese, you've got nuts, you've got all of those foods. It's whole and it's unprocessed. There is nothing unhealthy about eating whole unprocessed food. It's the food that's in packages that are causing the problem. And if there's 5 or more ingredients in a package, it should go in the bin. It's highly processed, and it's going to have, and if anyone looks at the back of their ingredients in their pantry right now, most of the stuff will have canola or some sort of vegetable oil. And that is a huge problem for insulin resistance and causing these diseases that we're having. So when it comes to clean keto and dirty keto, or lazy keto, whatever you call it, there's just different amounts of carbohydrates. So some people will just start off, if they've gone from that standard supermarket diet and they want to make some lifestyle changes and they heard that keto is great, they might just start off lowering the carbohydrates, but they're not really tracking their food. They're just sort of taking it.
Might have lost you there. Let's just.
My bad.
Oh, I think we lost you for a second there. So.
I don't know where was I up to from your end?
Dirty, lazy keto. So yeah.
So it just means that somebody might not be tracking their carbohydrates. When you do strict keto, it's about 20 grams of carbohydrates per day, which is not a lot. So somebody who's doing strict keto would start off by tracking, because it's very hard to know what you're having if you're not tracking it. And carbs can just creep in there, and it's more than what you actually sort of think. And so that's strict keto. And then you've got lazy or dirty keto or whatever. And that's just a little bit, you allow yourself a little bit more carbohydrates, probably up to 50 grams. And then you've got the low carbohydrate as well, which is under 100. And that's still great as well, depending on what your health goals are.
So you say health goals. So it sounds to me as though some people do keto literally just for weight loss, and some people do it for well-being. So if you were doing it for weight loss, maybe you'd be one of those people who go, oh, I want to get my carbs down to this amount or whatever. But if you're doing it for well-being, do you still have to count or watch, macros, or you just...
It's very individual. You've got to do what works for you. And if somebody wants to move at a slower pace, then starting out from, say they've had a really bad diet and they want to get healthy, they might decide to go low carb first. because it's not as big a jump. It's not one extreme to another. And so starting low carb, they'll be under 100 grams, which is quite, to me, is actually still quite a lot of carbohydrates. They can still have a little bit of bread. They can still have a little bit of, but it's less than what they're having. If these people have come from 200, 300 grams of carbs a day, they're going to find going to low carb maybe a little easier, the transition. And then they start feeling good. They start losing a bit of weight, and then it will plateau. And then they feel like they could do more because they've already taken that step down. So then they'll go to keto. And it's not such a big jump, and it's quite easy for them. Other people will go from being really metabolically unhealthy and going from that really bad diet, go straight into strict keto. And that is fine too. And that's what I do when I do my 12-week programs. It's for clients who are really overweight, who are pre-diabetic, type 2 diabetes, and have got other health issues, and they're carb addicts. That's another story. That's people who actually have an addiction, and I treat them like an addict. So they're not allowed to they go strict because they need to heal their body. If they want to get well, they have to do it. And sometimes dabbling in between and having, a little bit of treats here and there and guilt-free meals is not always good, because they end up binging and end up going back to the way they were. So if they can be as clean as they can for 12 whole weeks, they're going to beat that addiction of craving sugar, craving carbs, and then they're out the other end, and then they can loosen up a little bit. But so there's different ways of doing it, and there's no right or there's no wrong. It's what's going to work. I've got clients that will just they'll be strict through the week, and in the weekend they're more relaxed. And when I say more relaxed, it's not going nuts and being absolutely eating terrible food, but they just don't track, or they allow themselves that glass of wine, they allow themselves a nice meal without guilt and enjoy it, and that's fine too. So it's really and some people just live that way. They just do 80% really clean and healthy, and 20% enjoying their weekends with their families, and that's okay too.
Yeah, so that's my next question would be, so if they're living an 80-20 life, what about what is it, that whole thing of going in and out of ketosis?
In and out of ketosis. So you get kicked out of ketosis if you have alcohol, if you have a really high carb thing. And in the beginning, if you've got loads of weight to lose, you want to stay on track. You really don't want to, because it can take a couple of days to get back into ketosis. But if you are a healthy individual and you've been living the low carb ketogenic lifestyle for a long time, it's okay to cycle in and out of ketosis. You don't have to be in ketosis the whole time. It's just our bodies are designed to be able to flip from going sugar burning to fat burning. And when we eat a diet that's high in carbohydrates and processed food, our bodies are only sugar burners. And the sugar burners, that's where all the damage takes place. This is where all our diseases are coming from. This is where we become insulin resistant, which I talked about last time. And I'm passionate about insulin resistant because it plays a part in every single disease that there is. So you have Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is classed as type 3 diabetes. It's insulin resistance of the brain. This comes from our food that we're eating. We have we've got Parkinson's, we've got cancer. All these things are metabolic diseases. So if we remove all the sugar and the carbs, our health is going to be better. And I'm saying, I make it sound like carbs are bad. They're not bad. But if you're metabolically unhealthy, they are bad, and you need to remove them to get healthy.
So you've said meat and plants. What in plant food, is there anything that's off limits? Are there high carb foods? And
if someone's just trying to be healthier, just to, they don't have major issues, they can still eat. If they want to eat pumpkin and kumara, that is fine. But if, like I said before, if you are really unhealthy, that needs to go for a while anyway, because it's raising your blood sugar. So any underground vegetables, any root vegetables need to be off the plate for a while, just until you become metabolically healthy again.
You mentioned potato there. So is that
potato? Sorry, you sell potatoes. So don't eat potatoes.
What's that?
Get rid of them.
Get rid of potatoes.
Yeah, really? But yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're fine. If, like I say, there's no right or wrong. But if you are really unhealthy, you need to remove them for a while, because it's going to raise your blood sugar. So when I talk about carbs and sugar, think of it as one thing. Carbohydrates is sugar. So when when you have a bowl of rice, so some people go, oh, I've swapped white rice for brown rice. No, rice is rice. It's
Oh,
10
wow.
teaspoons of sugar in one serving. 10.
Wow.
Now, we only need 1 teaspoon of sugar in our body at any given time. That's all our body needs. So we go and have 10 times the amount of sugar in one meal, plus you've got all the other stuff that goes with it. We are just overeating too much sugar and carbs.
Wow.
But if a little bit is fine, it's
Mm.
absolutely fine. But when we've done this for many, many years, we are so metabolically damaged
Yeah.
that it's not good. And so what I hear a lot of people say is that it's dangerous to remove a food group. Absolutely, it's dangerous if it's a proper food group. So we've got 3 main macronutrients. We've got fat, protein, and carbohydrates. Only 2 of them are essential. What essential means is that we have to eat them to survive. Without them, we die, and that is fat and protein.
Wow.
So we need to consume it. If we take carbohydrates away, that's called a non-essential macronutrient. So we cannot have a single carb, and our body has this amazing ability to make sugar, because we do need to have about a teaspoon of sugar in our blood. We always do, but it makes it from the protein that we eat. So I can go days without a single carbohydrate, but my body is making the sugar that it needs, because we do need sugar for our red blood cells and for a little bit in our brain. That's all we need. That's all we need. 1 teaspoon, that's it. But if you look at the packets, back of packets, how much sugar is in things like cereals. All cereals should be, they've got a 4 or 5 star rating. They are so bad. So bad. They sell it with all this, vitamins and minerals. It's just crap. It really isn't. It needs to go in the bin, and it's so much damage to our children.
So interesting, because when we talked last about intermittent fasting, and I said to you how I just naturally I'm not a breakfast person, so I feel yucky if I eat breakfast. And then I have never talked to my girls or anybody about our conversation. This went to the big girls group. But my little girls have just in the last few months just stopped having breakfast, and they'll be like, I just don't want breakfast. And if we had not have had that conversation, I'd be like, oh no, you have to have breakfast, because how's your brain going to work if you're not eating breakfast? And now I'm like watching them make these decisions, and like I do coach them a little bit about the sugar things since our chat.
Absolutely.
And I try and help them, and I just praise them for good choices, and I don't say anything much about, if they make bad choices, but we just don't have as much there for them to choose from. But I just thought it's interesting watching them make their own choices, and it must be what their body needs now, because they don't have all the sugar choices and they're not having the breakfast. And I'm like, wow, like I've noticed one of my girls who actually did put on a bit of weight during lockdown, and it's just all come off. It's just all gone. And I'm like, wow, this is actually amazing. And no coaching from me, just standing back and watching what they were doing.
Yeah, very interesting.
And so that's almost like an inadvertent case study, just based on the information. I felt safe that I could watch them and observe it just from from an outside perspective. I could just observe it because I knew what you said. And so I felt secure in watching them just say, oh no, I don't want breakfast or whatever. So that was so good and so helpful for me personally in my life. And cereals are just like, I mean, I didn't know, like what you said, didn't know they were that bad, but I just, I have noticed the changes in the girls. So obviously something's happening.
Absolutely.
So far out, that's amazing. So, okay, what are, macronutrients?
Macronutrients. So we've got 3. We've got fat, protein, and carbohydrates, but only fat and protein are essential. We need to have them in our diet. So if you take them away, we won't survive. But carbohydrates is not essential. So you don't need to consume any carbohydrates at all.
Yeah, amazing. So how do you measure do you every day go, oh, I've got to have this measurement of that and this measurement of that? Like that, would that get a bit tedious?
No, really the way of starting keto is to really just track your carbohydrates. That's the easiest way. Don't worry about the rest. Eat the fat, eat the protein, and don't stress. You can do keto really wrong, and you can do it really well. When I say you can do it wrong, it's not wrong, but badly, is that there's so many keto treats out there and packaged foods out there that's keto friendly. It's highly processed, and you've got to be so careful about that kind of thing. It's best to stick with, food how you find in nature. So that's not really in a packet. Of course, meat's in a packet because it has to be, but it's just how it is kind of thing. things are in packets, that the processing that's taken place. And I say the vegetable oils, it's the vegetable oils that are, I think, they're up there. I think they're probably actually worse than sugar with the damage that they're causing. Margarine, all the canola, and because it's cheap to use. They don't use olive oil. They're not going to use good oils because that's more expensive. And it wasn't until seed oils came on the market, like 50 years ago, is when all the cancer rates started going up. So it is it's and then keto done well is that you are just sticking to that whole unprocessed philosophy with food. And there is such a thing as eating. A lot of people go, oh, you've got to eat all this fat, you've got to eat all this fat. You don't have to eat loads of fat, and too much fat will actually stop you from losing weight if that's the reason that you're trying to if you're going keto. So we have two types of fat. We've got our dietary fat and we've got our stored body fat, and we want to actually not just use our dietary fat that we're eating. So this is when we eat too much fat. We actually want to tap into our fat stores that we want to obviously lose. We want to lose that fat. So that's where not eating heaps and heaps of fat is important, but not going low. We never want to be low fat because fat is such an essential thing that we need. It's for hormones. There's so many things that fat plays a role in. But then intermittent fasting comes in. So that's when we are tapping into our fat stores because we're not consuming any dietary fat. So you can do it wrong. A lot of people, they're like, I'm not losing weight, I'm feeling better. And you will feel better if you consume lots of fat, because keto has been around for over 100 years and they've been treating it with people with epilepsy. So it's very therapeutic on the brain. High fat is, and that's where they'll use high fat for epileptics, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. You need to be high fat. That's not a weight loss diet. That is ketones for the brain, because our brain loves ketones. And but if you're trying to lose weight, there is a fine line with how much fat that you have.
Okay, so when you say high fat, my brain, every time you say it, my brain's thinking of the thing around the meat, fat. So what tell me what high fat can't be there.
High fat. So high fat, avocados. Olive oil. Cooking with natural oils, and natural oils are ghee, butter, lard, tallow. All of that are all natural fats. So they're not
coconut oil, is that?
Coconut oil is fine, and so is olive oil. But all those other seed oils, all those grapeseed, canola, vegetable, soybean, I know the names of them because they're so bad. They all need to go in the bin. Nobody benefits from them. They are so bad. They are highly processed. Our bodies are not designed to even, it's terrible. It causes inflammation and oxidative stress.
Wow. It's amazing, what you don't even know what you're doing to your body, eh? Can you tell Sorry, can you watch okay, so it sounds like you couldn't be vegetarian and do keto.
It's a lot harder. So vegetarian, there's a lot more people now because we've been conditioned, don't eat red meat. However, there's a lot of deficiencies if you're a vegetarian. Not saying that it's bad. But you do have to make sure that you have to supplement if you're vegetarian or vegan. You can't they say, but you can get this much, you can get that protein from the vegetables, or you can get those. No, you can't. It's not, plants are not as bioavailable to the body as meat is. Meat is everything. You get everything, all the amino acids that you need from animal products. When it comes to plants, if you're doing plants alone, your body, even if it says it's got this much of something, your body doesn't absorb it all. So you do need to be making sure that you're having enough iron and vitamin B12. I mean, that's only from animal products. So you do need to have.
What would be the minimum amount of meat, that you, say if somebody was just not a big meat eater, what would be a minimal amount of eat to be able to do keto but still
well, you have it with your lunch and dinner. You don't have to go nuts on it. It's not like your whole plate is covered in meat if you don't want it to be. It's not. If there's fish, there's chicken, there's tuna, salmon, all those lovely things as well. You could be a pescatarian, which is fish and vegetables. You can do keto. I mean, you're getting your fats through avocado, nuts, olive oil, coconut oil. So that gives you an idea. It's not like this big plate of meat. It doesn't have to be.
Okay. And does it have to be daily, or is it better to be daily?
Well, you need to make sure that you're meeting your protein needs as well. So protein's often undereaten, especially women over 40. The daily recommended allowance is meant to be 0.6 to 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. It's really not enough, not over the age of 40. So if you are not eating that protein, you're going to be under eating, you're going to be hungry. It's going to be a lot harder to do. Let's put it that way. A lot harder to do. So I don't know many vegetarians or vegans that are keto. It is hard. And so therefore their carbs do sort of increase a lot more.
Yeah, I have seen that with vegetarian. I've done a few recipes lately, and it's a lot more like things that you would generally avoid as a woman, just in general, like rice and naan bread and all that sort of thing. And there's a lot of that involved when you're doing vegetarian cooking. So I guess that's where they have to make up that whole energy thing.
Absolutely.
So crazy. Like, this is just honestly blowing some of my misconceptions totally apart. What about I know, or I've heard that so milk is obviously part of an animal, but doesn't that have a lot of sugar in it? So
yeah, absolutely. So milk is definitely not keto. You don't have that when you're on keto. You would have cream. You would have full fat cream. However, dairy and nuts can cause plateaus with weight loss. So dairy can be known to cause a little bit of inflammation. So in the beginning, when starting keto, I say just eat all the foods that you're allowed. Have the cream, have the nuts. But then when your weight loss starts to plateau, then taking that away is a good thing. So not having it as much. So it's completely fine to have, but it's just everyone's very different with the way they respond to it.
So just give me like a visual on what would your daily diet look like for others who would just not know where to start.
So I'm actually I'm 80% carnivore actually. So I am a meat eater. And I've been doing carnivore for two years, not full carnivore, but before that I've been 20 years doing keto. So I've been living this lifestyle a long time. So I don't do breakfast. Obviously I fast, because fasting just comes with being, fat adapted. My lunch would be eggs, or it would be a piece of steak, avocado, sauerkraut is a really good one for your gut. That's what I generally have. So my vegetables of choice are avocado and sauerkraut. And I do eat a little bit of fruit. I mean, I'm metabolically healthy, so I can have fruit. It's absolutely fine. But if you're not metabolically healthy, you don't want to go near fruit for a while, because it's just as damaging as normal glucose. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a really boring eater. So I'm not really, I'm a plain eater, creature of habit, eat the same thing all the time. And
so what does that look like for family dinners?
Family dinners is the same, but with vegetables. So they just eat, because I'm such a terrible cook. Not terrible cook. I'm just a plain cook. I don't do dishes, like fancy I don't do recipes. I just do, it's meat and vegetables.
Really basic,
Yeah.
So, and is that what they don't have the...
They don't have cream or pumpkin. And it's not because I don't give it, I guess I didn't give it to them much when they were younger. It was just, and so they just don't eat it now. So vegetables and, some sort of protein.
It would probably take a bit of getting used to for a family that had...
Absolutely. But there's so many recipes out there. There's amazing websites like Ditch the Carbs is a really good one. Wholesome Yum, Diet Doctor. They've got amazing recipes that are low carb or ketogenic, and your whole family can do it. It's not dangerous for children not to have carbohydrates. It's absolutely fine. Obviously, they can tolerate carbohydrates more. They're metabolically healthier. But feeding them all this crap early on and all this food, processed food, is setting them up for metabolic disaster later in life. This is why we've got children that are getting type 2 diabetes. It's on the rise, and it's because of the food choices that we're eating.
And scary. Okay, so all right, that's so many of my questions answered. I can't actually, my mind's completely blown, and it's like really undone some stuff for me, and it probably is going to be a little bit psychological, because I'm like, what? No potatoes? Like, like there'll just be some things that I'm like, what the heck? But I mean, really interesting. And I like, it makes so much sense that the insulin's what causes inflammation, and inflammation's what causes the metabolic dis-ease in your body. And if you want to be healthier, you have to be disciplined. Right? Like
absolutely. And if you can reverse type 2 diabetes. And if you can reverse it by taking that away, that's saying a lot about this lifestyle. It's not a diet. It's not a fad. Been around for many years. They used it, I can't even remember how early on, in the early 1900s for type 1 diabetics, because they didn't have insulin. So they had to have on a very low carbohydrate, high fat diet. So their blood sugar wasn't rising. But then insulin came along, and then they were just like, oh, well, it's fine now, you know.
Mm.
So, and with type 2 diabetics, what's happening is that they're getting diabetes, and then you go to the doctor, they give you insulin injections, but insulin is the problem. You've got diabetes because of your insulin, but your body's not responding to insulin anymore. It needs more. So you just go and inject it. So it's like, take all of that away, and your diabetes can go into remission within a very short amount of time. And it's amazing. So it's just
if you were going to address diabetes, insulin resistant diabetes, is that what it's called?
Yep.
It's called. Would you start the keto way of living first and then see if you can come off your medications, or will you just go off medications and on?
No, you don't go off medications straight away. You've got to obviously talk to your doctor and say, this is what I'm doing. Yeah. And the doctor will adjust your insulin, because your insulin will go down until you get off it. Same with high blood pressure. Anyone who's got high blood pressure and is on high blood pressure medication will come off their medication.
Yeah. Wow.
If you can come off your blood pressure medication and other medications, that's saying so much about, because, you know, today everything is masked with a pill.
Yeah.
The Band-Aid is being slapped on the symptoms, but let's treat the root cause. The root cause is your food that you're eating.
Absolutely. But I mean, there's just so much confusion about the food you're eating, because like we talked about,
absolutely,
vegetarians will say one thing and vegans will say another thing, and carnivores.
Exactly. And I mean, if it was all true, I'd probably be dead now because of the amount of fat, you know, not that I eat loads, but I haven't had vegetables in 2 years, like a big amount, and I'm thriving more than I did just for me, because it works for me. I've got my reasons why I put it away. And some people react to vegetables. It's actually a thing. People have reactions and have, you know, and you don't get people reacting to meat. I think it's just what you eat the meat with.
Yeah.
And any like plant-based burger patties, they're just
yuck. No, I would, if I was going no meat, I would not be trying to replace it with some kind of plant-based.
No, and that's unfortunately where it's going, and it's very industry driven, and it's there's no money in health. There's no money in healthy people anyway. So
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, I hope you can continue your carnivore diet with our dairy industry looking like it's going down the toilet. It's going to be an expensive way to eat, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, one last question. This is for me, because I've got a whole big drawer full of spices and herbs and spices. Yeah. Can you have all of those? All of those on keto?
Absolutely. Spices. Yeah, you can add flavor. And there's so many recipes that you can add all this flavor, so you don't have to be boring. But it's sticking to the outside of the supermarket aisles. So when you go in, you've got your fruit, veggies, and you go along to the, the meat, and it's not going inside into the other aisle. So, and if you think about having a full fridge and an empty pantry is the healthy, because anything in a pantry is generally processed. So the first thing you need to do is look at that label. If there's more than 5 ingredients, in the bin. That's my advice to my clients anyway. Yeah.
Well, my pantry one of the shelves just fell down, so maybe it's a sign. Get rid of that hot shelf.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. Okay, well, that is a really good lot of information, and I think that's heaps for everybody to absorb for the moment. But we'll put some links up and things, and so they can track back to you. And if they have any other questions and that sort of thing, they can maybe go to your Facebook, and you've got an Instagram and all that sort of thing, eh? So I'll put some links up to all of those things. But thanks so much. Really, really amazing wealth of information. And I think people are going to be really I know most people probably already know about keto, but if I don't, there'll be other people who don't. So hopefully that's those people. And thanks so much for coming on again. And hey, we should get back and have another chat about the carb thing. It was the carb thing. Yeah, awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks so much for having me along. My pleasure.
Thanks, Talia. Bye.
Bye.